I made the biggest mistake of my life that night. Deep down I knew I should have said no, but I was desperate. It was a night like any other, or so I thought as I set out on my drive through the heart of the United States. The road stretched endlessly ahead, illuminated only by the faint glow of the full moon. My destination was a small town nestled deep in the heartland, and I had been looking forward to the visit for weeks. But as the miles ticked by and the hour grew later, I found myself growing increasingly uneasy. The highway, once bustling with fellow travelers, had become desolate. Not a single pair of headlights illuminated the road ahead. I checked my phone for the umpteenth time, praying for even a single bar of cell signal, but it remained stubbornly out of reach. My heart sank as I pulled my car to the side of the road. It sputtered and groaned before coming to an ominous, final halt. I cursed under my breath, knowing that I was in trouble. The engine refused to turn over, leaving me stranded on this desolate stretch of highway. I stepped out of the car into the chilly night air, the crunch of gravel beneath my feet the only sound in the oppressive silence. I tried to remain calm, reminding myself that I had a flashlight, blankets, and enough snacks to last the night. I dialed for roadside assistance, but the call went straight to voicemail, a testament to the remoteness of my location. As I paced back and forth by the car, anxiety gnawing at my insides, I couldn't help but feel a creeping sense of dread. It was as though the darkness around me was closing in, pressing on me from all sides. Minutes turned into hours, and with each passing moment, the isolation grew more pronounced. I felt as though I were the last person left in the world, abandoned on this forgotten stretch of highway. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it an eerie, mournful sound. Desperation set in as I contemplated my options. The nearest town was miles away, and walking there in the dead of night was out of the question. I was trapped, alone, and with no way of knowing when, or if, help would arrive. Just as I was about to resign myself to a long, cold night in the car, I heard it, a distant, faint hum, growing steadily louder. Headlights pierced the darkness, and a car approached from the distance. Relief washed over me, and I waved my arms, hoping the driver would stop and offer assistance. The approaching vehicle slowed as it neared me, its headlights casting an eerie glow on the empty road. I watched, a mixture of hope and trepidation churning in my stomach, as it pulled over just ahead of my stranded car. I couldn't see the driver's face clearly, their features shrouded in shadow, but the silhouette seemed to belong to a man. He stepped out of the car and approached me with measured steps. His voice, when he spoke, was soft-spoken and oddly soothing, yet something about it sent shivers down my spine. "Having car trouble?" he asked, his words hanging in the cold night air. I nodded, unable to find my voice for a moment. "Yeah, it just died on me out of nowhere. I've been waiting for hours, but no one else has passed by." The stranger regarded me with an inscrutable expression. "You're lucky I came along, then. I can give you a lift to the nearest town. It's not too far from here." Relief flooded through me at the offer. I desperately needed to reach my destination, and the thought of a warm, welcoming town was too tempting to resist. I hesitated for only a moment before accepting the stranger's offer, even though something about him struck me as unsettling. As I approached the car, I caught glimpses of strange objects on the back seat, oddly shaped sculptures, archaic-looking books, and other unsettling things that piqued my curiosity and unease. I brushed off the unease, attributing it to the lateness of the hour and my own exhaustion. I settled into the passenger seat, the car's interior cloaked in shadows. The stranger got behind the wheel, and the engine roared to life with an unnatural smoothness. We pulled back onto the highway, leaving my stranded car behind. The journey began, the headlights of the stranger's car cutting through the inky darkness. I couldn't help but wonder about the driver and the stories he might have to share to pass the time. After all, I had a long drive ahead of me, and his voice, despite my reservations, was oddly captivating. As we drove further into the night, the highway stretched endlessly ahead, framed by the dark expanse of the countryside. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow on the road, and the hum of the engine was the only sound that broke the silence. After a long period of quiet, the driver finally began to speak, his voice a soft, hypnotic murmur that filled the car's interior. He told tales of ghostly encounters, mysterious disappearances, and local legends, each story more unsettling than the last. "Did you know," he began, "that there's a ghostly figure that haunts these very woods? They say it's the spirit of a lost traveler who met a gruesome end out here." I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, feeling a chill crawl up my spine. "Is that so?" The driver nodded, his eyes fixed on the winding road ahead. "Oh, yes. People have reported seeing a shadowy figure on the side of the road, just like the one you encountered tonight. Some say it's a warning, a harbinger of doom for those who dare to travel these roads alone." I couldn't help but glance out the window, half expecting to see the phantom figure lurking among the trees. The stories had already begun to take hold of my imagination, weaving a tapestry of dread and unease. The driver's voice took on a somber tone as he continued, "And then there's the tale of the abandoned farmhouse deep in these woods. They say it's cursed, haunted by the vengeful spirits of those who once lived there." I listened intently, my curiosity warring with a growing sense of foreboding. The car's interior felt oppressive, as though the air itself had thickened with the weight of the stories. "Have you ever encountered any of these spirits?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The driver's lips curled into a cryptic smile, though I couldn't see it clearly in the dim light. "Oh, my dear passenger, I've encountered more than my fair share of spirits in these woods. But not all of them are what they seem." His response sent a shiver down my spine, and I couldn't help but feel that there was more to his words than met the eye. The journey had taken an eerie turn, and I was left with a growing sense of unease. As the car continued down the isolated highway, the stories became increasingly specific, some of them mirroring my own life experiences. The driver's soft-spoken words seemed to dig into the depths of my psyche, unearthing buried memories and fears I had long tried to forget. As the miles passed by and the driver's unsettling stories continued, I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. The car's interior had taken on a strange and oppressive atmosphere, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply amiss. I had initially welcomed the distraction of the driver's tales, hoping they would take my mind off the desolation of the road and the uncertainty of my situation. But as the stories grew more specific, it became clear that something was not quite right. The driver recounted tales of lost loved ones, personal tragedies, and eerie coincidences, all of which seemed to mirror my own life experiences. It was as though he knew things about me that he couldn't possibly have known, and his words began to feel like a calculated assault on my psyche. I pressed him for answers, demanding to know how he could possibly know these things. His response was cryptic, delivered with a disconcerting smile. "I have a gift for understanding people," he said. "I can see the threads that connect us all, the invisible ties that bind one soul to another." The car's interior grew more oppressive with each passing mile, and I noticed that the windows wouldn't roll down. Panic began to claw at the edges of my mind as I realized that I was trapped, isolated in this eerie car with a stranger who seemed to know far too much about me. I needed to escape, to get away from this unsettling presence. But as I reached for the door handle, it refused to budge. It was as though the car itself had conspired to keep me imprisoned. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned to the driver, desperation in my voice. "Let me out. I need to get out of this car." The driver's soft-spoken response sent a chill down my spine. "I'm afraid that's not possible, my dear passenger. The road ahead is long and winding, and there is no turning back." Terror gripped me as I realized the gravity of the situation. The cryptic stories, the unsettling familiarity with my life, the oppressive atmosphere, all of it pointed toward a sinister truth. I was no longer a passenger in a car, I was a pawn in some twisted game, and my life hung in the balance. My heart raced as the car continued down the desolate highway, the isolation and unease closing in around me. The driver's soft-spoken voice seemed to echo in the enclosed space, and I knew that I had to confront him, to demand answers and unveil the sinister purpose behind this nightmarish journey. I turned to him, my voice trembling with fear and anger. "Who are you, and what do you want from me?" The driver's lips curled into a chilling smile, and his eyes gleamed with an eerie, unnatural light. "Ah, my dear passenger, you have always been so full of questions. But the answers you seek are not so easily given." The metallic scent in the car's interior grew stronger, filling my nostrils with its acrid, almost sickening aroma. I felt a growing sense of hopelessness, a realization that the driver's grasp was unyielding, and my fate rested in his hands. I couldn't accept that my life had been reduced to a mere pawn in some twisted game. The cryptic stories, the unsettling familiarity with my life, all of it pointed toward a revelation that would either lead to my salvation or plunge me deeper into this nightmarish abyss. As the car hurtled through the darkness, I knew that I had to confront the driver head-on. The riddle that surrounded me was a web of fate, and I was determined to untangle it before it ensnared me completely. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone, hoping against hope that I might still find a sliver of cell signal. But as I unlocked the screen, a chilling realization washed over me. The driver had placed a small, metallic object on the dashboard that emitted a low-frequency signal, jamming all communication. The driver's eyes never left the road as he spoke, his voice soft and insidious. "There's no escape, my dear passenger. You and I are bound by the threads of fate, and tonight, we embark on a journey from which there is no return." I felt a growing sense of despair, but I knew that I couldn't give in to fear. I had to fight back, to unravel the enigma that surrounded the driver and discover the truth hidden in the shadows. The road ahead was dark and treacherous, and the only way out was to confront the sinister presence that had ensnared me in this nightmarish ride. The car continued to speed down the desolate highway, the world outside shrouded in darkness. The driver's soft-spoken voice seemed to echo in the enclosed space, filling the car with an eerie sense of foreboding. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was trapped in a nightmare, a surreal and twisted reality where the rules of the world no longer applied. The metallic scent in the car's interior grew stronger, its acrid aroma filling my nostrils and making my head swim with a sickening mixture of dread and disorientation. As I glanced around the car, my eyes fell upon a series of cryptic messages etched into the dashboard, strange symbols and runes that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. They appeared to be some sort of incantation, their meaning eluding me but their malevolence unmistakable. The driver, his gaze never leaving the road, seemed unperturbed by the oppressive atmosphere. "Do you believe in fate?" he asked suddenly, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. I hesitated before responding, my thoughts weighed down by the gravity of the situation. "I don't know what to believe anymore." A low chuckle emanated from the driver's seat, sending a shiver down my spine. "Ah, uncertainty, a constant companion on life's winding path. But sometimes, uncertainty can lead to revelations." With a sinking feeling, I realized that the driver was guiding this conversation with a purpose. Each word he spoke seemed carefully chosen, and his intentions remained veiled in shadow. The car's headlights cast fleeting glimpses of the forest beyond the road, revealing gnarled trees that seemed to twist and contort in unnatural ways. Shadows danced among the branches, their movements unsettlingly coordinated, like a sinister ballet in the night. The car raced down the desolate highway, its headlights cutting through the darkness like a desperate plea for salvation. Inside the vehicle, the oppressive atmosphere seemed to constrict around me, but I refused to succumb to fear. My determination to escape this nightmarish ride burned brighter than ever. As I continued to study the cryptic symbols etched into the dashboard, a sliver of understanding began to creep into my mind. The driver's twisted motives, the eerie messages, the bizarre symbols, they were all connected, and I was determined to unravel the truth. Then I did what I should have done long ago. I attacked the driver and found my window to open the door and jump out of the running car. Blood ran down my forehead and elbow. I couldn't stand for a minute. But I was glad that I was out of that car. As the light began to fade, I found myself standing on the side of the desolate highway. The car, the driver, and the nightmarish ride were gone, leaving behind only the eerie silence of the empty road. Relief washed over me, but I knew that the ordeal had left its mark. The boundary between reality and the supernatural had blurred, and I had glimpsed a world beyond our understanding. It was a place of shadows and malevolent forces, where the threads of fate were woven into a web of terror. With shaky steps, I continued down the highway, my heart heavy with the weight of the night's horrors. The moon cast an eerie glow on the empty road, and the distant hum of an approaching vehicle broke the silence once more. This time, as the car approached, I hesitated for only a moment before flagging it down. The driver, a stranger with a kind face, offered me a ride to the nearest town. I accepted gratefully, knowing that the road ahead would be filled with questions and uncertainties. As we drove away from that desolate highway, I couldn't help but wonder about the true nature of the driver and the nightmarish ride. Had it all been a hallucination, a manifestation of my own fears? Or had I truly crossed paths with a guardian of the threads of fate, bound to a destiny I could only begin to comprehend? The answers remained elusive, buried in the shadows of that harrowing night. But one thing was certain, I had escaped the horror that had threatened to consume me, and I was determined to face whatever lay ahead with newfound strength and resilience. The night had tested my limits, pushed me to the brink of despair, and forced me to confront my deepest fears. But I had emerged from the darkness, forever changed and forever vigilant, knowing that the threads of fate were woven with threads of terror.